What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Elephant in the Room, part of Roll Tide Pods on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Love the comments, man. We love listening to what you guys think about the show. If you got ideas of stuff that you want us to talk about, questions, make sure you throw those on there as well. And it's really cool being part of Disrupt the Media. Let me remind you guys that we're presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Up to 50% on that, up to $1,000, 50% on the initial deposit. Make your picks. Obviously, after a slow start, I'm hot. So if there's any games coming up, I probably should tell you about those. No, I'm just kidding. Don't take my picks, but I sounded convincing saying that.
You're due though.
Yeah,
you know?
I was due.
The odds are with you.
I like you take 2 of the last 3 weeks. I won 9 and lost 0. Then I had a 1 and 3 in there, and I was so bad. I'm still not sniffing 500. He's Jake Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie, and what's up, man? I'm like I set this thing up, and then I forget what I'm talking about because I'm thinking about how if I would have started the season 500, I would end up having a great season. I had the worst damn start.
See, I usually start out pretty well, and then as the season progresses and teams lose games they shouldn't, I start second guessing picks. And this year I had a couple bad weeks, but for the most part, this has been a banner year for me.
We keep trying to get Ryan Anderson to come back. I mean, we got the group chat going. We want to hear he wants to come in, and then we can't corral him. He's got a Christmas party tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Big Christmas party.
Yeah, we know what that means.
Yeah, right. Everybody's fired up though about Alabama right now. I mean, it's such a good time to roll Tide, man.
Oh yeah.
Such a good time.
You know, it's so funny. I was listening to, I guess we'll get on this topic, but I was listening to Jim Dunaway the other day on the show, and it was funny. He was proposing who he'd like to be on the selection committee.
Oh, I heard him say that, yeah.
And I was joking around with my dad and a couple friends yesterday at lunch, and somebody mentioned that the president of the United States should be on the selection committee, you know, for no bias, 4 teams. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, how interesting and crazy would it be if Joe Biden was picking, you know, the 4 top college schools football teams to play in the playoff. And as I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, man, you know, in the college football playoff, how badass would it be for Joe Biden to put in the Atlanta Braves and the LA Lakers?
Did you see him poop his pants with the turkey? Did you see that?
That's all I can say. Joe, Atlanta and LA.
They're like, everybody kept texting me like, you're not gonna believe this. Joe Biden pooped his pants, and then I'm like, oh my god. And then I see the video, and I'm like, man, I don't know if he did, but he sharted for sure. So, like he's walking, like, and then all of a sudden he's running through like, you see that? Like the guards are coming.
I did too.
And here
they're getting out of the way.
Yeah, the turkey's like, I'm supposed to get pardoned, man. They're gonna end up eating me because of this.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone's like, what is going on here?
Oh gosh.
Even when George W. Bush found out, like they came in, he was like reading the kids and they're like, hey, there's some, 9/11's happening. He was cool and just kind of, all right, guys, that's the end of the story, and got up.
Yeah.
I would have probably ran out like that,
He had a look. I remember I watched a documentary on that the other day. It was like,
yeah.
Yeah. Man, can you imagine getting news like that?
No, I would hate that. I would never want that job.
That's why we're doing podcasts.
I know. He was maybe it was just there was the challenge of pardoning a turkey. It's like we should have it pulled up here just to watch that. I didn't even know he could move that. But good thing he didn't fall down. It could have really been a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some practice for rolling out of it.
Yeah. I heard those guys talking about like who they would have on the playoff committee. And Jim's like, well, actually, I've got mine right here. Whoa, that way. Who would you want on there? I mean, really, like if you were really picking like a playoff committee, I honestly, man, the playoff committee's mistake was they overvalued like Oregon and Florida State in the beginning, and they left Ohio State too high after their loss. What they should have done was said, hey, once you're out of it, you got to go to the back of the line.
But it's crazy. It was so predictable. I mean, it was so predictable. We talked about it on the show. Man, they put them at 8, and it's like, I mean, what is the reasoning behind this?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Bama stayed at 8 the whole damn time.
You knew
week after week, and you're like,
Alabama's better than 8.
Yeah, and they put themselves in the mistake they made was putting themselves in this position and not being a little smarter with Alabama and Texas. They should have moved them up.
Yep.
When Ohio State lost, they should have moved. I said this. They should have moved them to the back of the line. Then it would have been a little closer. They had Oregon. They weren't paying attention to Oregon's strength of schedule and their wins, and they had them overinflated. And then you get into that the last game of the season, and everything's going on, and it's like maybe they didn't expect Alabama to beat Georgia, but I told you they were going to beat Georgia. They should have just listened to me, and I would have had them covered. I kept telling you, like, I'm never worried about Georgia.
I felt like the consensus was that I don't know where the public was on that on the betting, but I felt like most people felt that Alabama had a really, really good, better chance of winning than losing in that game.
Yeah, but I know. And the thing about it is that there was this guy, he came from another planet, but he grew up here. His name was Superman. He was like a reporter, Clark Kent. And it was, the guy could do all kind of stuff, kind of like Georgia's football team. But there was this one rock that if you had that, his powers were neutralized.
Oh, yeah.
And in college football, Georgia may be Superman, but Alabama's kryptonite.
1-3.
Yeah.
1-3 since the streak.
Yeah, it's like, and honestly, it's like they're not intimidated at all by that. Now, Georgia's a great team, and to the point that I'm going to make to you, I'm going to say two things, and I know that some of you guys are going to be a little bit angry that I said this. First off, Georgia should be the one complaining about not getting in. They're one of the 4 best teams. I know they lost. They got hit with the kryptonite, and it's why they're not in there. They're one of the 4 best teams. Their roster's good. They made a few mistakes in the game that cost them, but they're still one of the 4 best teams. They were number 1 for a long time.
Yeah.
The second thing is, if they were one of the 4 teams left, they'd win it. And the reason I say that is because it's tough to beat a team twice. We found that out already, you know? And if the roles were reversed, you know, like when Alabama lost to LSU, they beat them in it's just the way it goes, man. Like motivation, Saban's talked about it a lot. You know, you get more out of people when they're after a loss, you know, these teams, than, you know, when they go undefeated. It's almost like there's a ball, like a heavy weight that you carry when you go undefeated, you know?
Yeah. I would say that just beating a team twice, I agree 100%. I mean,
as good as they are.
It is tough.
Yeah, I mean, they're damn good.
And if they get those guys healthy, I mean, you never know. But again,
if they had McConkey and Bowers sitting around for a month getting healthy.
Yeah. The only caveat I throw in there for that is that Jalen Milroe
it would be healthy
did not think he played up to his potential in that game.
He's banged up. Look, he's banged up.
And here's
obvious, but he's not hurt. He's just banged up. Right?
Yeah. I went on a few radio shows this week, and I told this same story. And this is to me. I mean, it was the first kind of thing I thought about when Florida State didn't make it. And everybody was saying, "Well, they did all the right things. They did all that they could do." My freshman year at Florida State, I was on scout team the entire time. You know, and really frustrated, want to get it into the mix, you know, and be on offense, be with the 1s and 2s, and you know, experience that and get better. Scout team, you know, I think you do get better with the right mindset, but sometimes it can be tough to get there. And I remember it was off season, and I go meet with Jimbo, and I was, thinking, I'm gonna tell him why I should be on that field, and so I go in there and I tell him, I've been working hard, I've been doing everything I'm supposed to do, I'm on time, busting my ass trying to, prove that I should be on the 1s and 2s field, and I'm working so hard, again, on time. And I remember him saying, he was like, well, just because you work hard and show up on time doesn't mean that everything's going to, come to fruition the way that you want it to. Just because you work hard doesn't guarantee you anything. You still have to be, good enough to be on that field and earn that spot. And, I looked at that very much similar to the situation Florida State's in. I mean, they have done all the right things. And if Jordan Travis hadn't been hurt,
right.
maybe it turns out. But at the end of the day, I think we all know, or you should know, that Florida State is not qualified based on the criteria to be in the playoff. And just because you do everything right and work your tail off, it doesn't mean you've earned that spot.
Yeah. I honestly, man, I think they're the 7th best team. I think that they should have been further down. Watching them play those last few games, they weren't as good as Georgia. They weren't as good as
Florida State to beat Ole Miss right now.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I went through let's do it with you. I'm going to do it with you. I've done this on some of my other shows, and I've never done this with you. But we'll see. I want to.
And here's the issue too: is I know they look. I would love to see a healthy Florida State in the playoff. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Washington out and Alabama in, mm-hmm. and then you've got that 4.
Yeah.
But it would be tough to if FSU. I was on a text thread and I won't mention any names, and it was a sore subject when I was on that text thread, so I didn't really pipe in and
was
say.
Was it some Florida State people?
Yeah,
oh boy,
it was my my group
some
of
people.
Buddies, a lot of groomsmen in my wedding.
Yeah, right.
And so I haven't. When we share a beer together, I'm sure we'll have this argument. But I'm talking to them, and as soon as Alabama's named, in the playoff, they're like, horse shit. This is, this is
bull crap. All right.
Yeah. And so anyway, we're talking, and I'm kind of staying quiet.
Yeah.
And then one of them says, Jake, listening to you talk about Alabama is like listening to Greg McElroy talk about Alabama. I was like, what? What? And so
let's get him.
And so then so
it's his fault.
So then right after that, they go the announcement that Florida State's playing Georgia comes out. And then the next text was like, oh God, I hope we don't get beat by 40. I didn't text anything back. I was like,
I'm staying out of this. And it depends on opt-outs and all of that. But all right, you tell me, I'm going to read through some teams. Okay. I want you to tell me who would win between these two teams.
Let's start after Ohio State.
I want to go through them. Michigan.
Yes.
So you'd say they'd win. Okay.
Yeah.
Against Florida State. Washington.
By less, but barely.
Right. Texas.
No.
Alabama.
No.
Georgia.
No.
Ohio State.
Nope.
Oregon.
I think Oregon would squeeze one out.
Yep, so do I. Missouri.
50-50.
Penn State.
I'm leaning towards Missouri, but
Missouri's that team. They're the turd in the punch bowl right now. You don't want to give them the credit for what they're. You're looking at that uniform and that brand,
mm-hmm.
and it's a turd brand.
Yeah,
sorry, it just is. They're the one team that the SEC.
They better hold on to Eli Drinkwitz.
He better get out of there because I'm telling you right now,
he probably will.
He needs to run.
I mean,
Eli, get out of there because you're not going to sustain this success, bro. It ain't happening.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those schools that once they have that mentality, like so. Now that Georgia's won a bunch, they still have the brand behind them to keep players and recruit players,
and they have money.
But I feel like, when Missouri gets there and NIL's an issue, and I mean, I just don't. I see it turning into just a nightmare pretty quick.
They did a great job of building that roster. I just can't imagine them being able to sustain that. I know he did a good job, but I don't buy it. Penn State.
I don't like Penn State. I don't think Penn State's all that great.
So you think they could beat them?
I think they could.
And then Ole Miss at 11 and Oklahoma at 12. And then LSU, they already beat them. So, I mean,
they beat them with a healthy quarterback.
Yeah, right. And so I'm with you, man. Like I start looking down this list, and I saw the last couple games. We watched them because we needed them to lose. We thought, and the fact that they looked so bad in beating Florida, and then the good God, the Louisville game, and Louisville lost to Kentucky. Like Kentucky, they were
boat raced
by everybody. Nobody, they didn't beat anybody good this year.
Kentucky is that team that we've always talked about, or we've talked about through the season, that they're going to be consistent. They're going to play good football, but at some point, talent's the limiting factor. And if you're dominant talent-wise and you're well coached, then you're going to beat Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're disciplined and not talented, you're not going to beat them. And if they're going to beat teams that are a little bit better than them talent-wise. But Louisville, I mean, that game, Kentucky was, they're right there. As far as coaching and talent. Yeah, I mean,
that's
it was
the difference between the conferences. And
there's a clear second-tier program, and I mean that actually as a compliment to Coach Stoops because he brought Kentucky there. But they're obviously not Georgia and Alabama,
Well, the bottom line is this. We've got to stop pretending that the ACC is a Power 5 football conference. They're not. There's nothing power about it.
Well, they tried to leave at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they've
it's not that, and it's not Florida State and Clemson. I'm not including them in it. It's the conference. It's besides those two teams, like maybe Miami, but after that,
I can't stand the 6-4.
Yeah, it's
the 6-4 argument that you make about, South Carolina got beat a couple times by ACC schools, and Vanderbilt got beat by an ACC school. I mean, go out and schedule Georgia and Alabama and
LSU
have fun with Tennessee. And, yeah,
they did, but it's the week after week of playing Syracuse and Boston College. They barely beat, and Duke. Even though we love Riley Leonard, hopefully he goes to Notre Dame. And you know what I'm saying?
That was a done deal. I thought he was going to Notre Dame.
Is he going to Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm good. I didn't hear that, but I've been in my baseball world in Nashville here the last few days. So I haven't looked at any of this stuff. But this, you look through their schedule and you're like, man, there's just so many cupcakes in there. Look, I know Alabama played Chattanooga, but they also played Tennessee and LSU, and they beat Georgia, and you know what I'm saying? They lost to Texas, but they were in the game. They were ahead in the fourth quarter. I mean, it wasn't like they got blown out.
Yeah.
And they were a different team back then. They also beat Ole Miss, which was a good win for them. And they weren't even playing that good back then. They went to Texas A&M when Texas A&M really still had something to play for and beat them. So Alabama's not invincible. This isn't an invincible Alabama team. They're going to have to play. They're going to have to play really good football to win this championship.
A&M, I mean, that team had as much talent as anybody.
Yeah, right. I mean, look at all the guys transferring.
Yeah, which is another whole other topic to get into.
Yeah,
but
I'm hoping that we net some of these guys.
Did Tennessee play an ACC team this year?
Tennessee, yeah, they killed Virginia.
Okay.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Virginia's on your schedule.
Yeah, man.
This is the. See if I can pull this up here. Their schedule, it just doesn't hold up, man. After they beat LSU, they played Southern Miss, terrible. Boston College, bad. Clemson, off year for them, and they beat them in overtime. They probably should have lost. Virginia Tech, not good. Syracuse, surprised they even have a program anymore. Duke, which had a good year for Duke. I'm not disrespecting that, but, I mean, come on. Wake Forest, no good. Pitt, sucks. Miami, letdown team. They struggled against North Alabama. They ended up beating them 58-13. But remember, it's 13-0 for a while there. Florida, 24-15. I'll give them that one. I mean, that is a rivalry game, but they didn't look good doing it. And then the Louisville game, when the heat's on and they didn't play, they won by 10 and they shouldn't have. But the bottom line is this. When Bobby Bowden was there, they played the same teams and they kicked their ass. Yeah. You know, every game was 56-7 and 45-10.
But what got them there was the anytime, any place.
Yeah.
When
but you know what I mean, though.
Oh, I know.
Style points matter because it shows how dominant you are. Yeah. Like, slipping by Boston College and in Louisville. I mean, come on, man. Like, I don't know. Like, there's another part of me that feels badly for them. Because I know how tough it is to go undefeated. And I've said it before, the regular season in college football up until now has always been the playoff. But, I mean, North Carolina State, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Clemson, I mean, those are the top teams in your league. North Carolina, they're not good. They're just not, man. And to try to compare them to what the SEC has is one thing, which is the SEC is way better. The other thing, and this is why I really think they're out, is the bottom line, man. Like, you could have got into that ACC championship game for free if you stood outside before the game. The SEC championship game tickets were like $450.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this.
And the TV ratings were like a 5-year high or something.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, FSU is an SEC school playing in the ACC.
They need to get in here.
I mean, that 2013 team that I was on was one of the most ungodly college rosters I've ever seen. I mean, it was arguably the best team maybe ever. But when you played, what made the huge difference for me is when I got to Alabama and I was at each game, and you played all these SEC schools. You saw the talent level even in the schools that are technically, historically, not as competitive. Right. And well, hell, and you went to each stadium. Each stadium was rocking. I mean, it sold out. Didn't matter if it was Arkansas. It didn't matter if it was. Trying to think where else we went that wasn't all that great. But anyway, each stadium that you went to, I mean, it was just a different culture. It was football culture. That was it. Florida State needs to make a move, and they're right about what they said earlier in the year, but they got to make it happen.
They won out, and I would want out too, but
it's time for sure.
Yeah. I mean, them and Clemson, honestly, I wouldn't mind having North Carolina just because I like the uniforms and the basketball. And then
North Carolina's not a terrible. I mean, North Carolina's about like South Carolina,
Yeah. I don't know about Miami. You guys can't get people to show up to your games.
Yeah, Miami is not an SEC school.
The U. I remember when the U used to do something, but that's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this because it's become such a national debate, about Florida State not getting in. Their argument ought to be with Texas A&M, but the writers did a lot of this stuff. Like, the writers were like,
Texas, you mean?
No, yeah, Texas. I'm sorry, not Texas A&M, Texas. The writers kind of made this, well, Texas has to be ahead of Alabama because they beat Alabama. And so that they had to get in just because they beat Alabama. They put all the pressure on there. And I'm telling you right now, the 4 teams would have been Georgia, Washington, Michigan, and Florida State had Georgia won. The fact that Alabama won, Matthew McConaughey and all the gang at Texas ought to be thanking Alabama.
I don't know. It could have been Alabama, Georgia. I mean, Michigan, Georgia, Washington, and Texas.
I don't think Texas would have got in, man. I think it would have been so easy to say, hey, we're taking the 4 undefeated teams.
Man, Texas beats the SEC runner-up, and then you watch what Florida State did.
But they were ranked 7th. You know, like they had us.
But Alabama was 8th.
I know. They had it set up to keep us out. Like they had it set up to be like, well, you know, like think about last year. This is another thing. Florida State fans are like, they're hammering Alabama. It's like last year we were 5th. And then and we're sitting there watching shitty ass TCU lose,
beat by 100 points,
losing the championship. No, losing their conference championship game.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't move them. They just left them there because they didn't want Alabama in. And I know it sucks, and it pissed me off last year because Alabama was one of the 4 best teams last year. Like they had 2 of the top 3 players in the NFL draft. They had the best quarterback, a Heisman Trophy winner that Alabama's ever had, besides you. And you know what I mean? Like, guy's pretty good. And we were outside looking in. How crazy is it that I'll get you hooked up. How crazy is it that we were out of it last year? You know what I mean? When you really think about it, like look at it.
I think it was finally one of those years where they had to do it. They felt obligated to do it. The amount of outrage last year would have just been ridiculous, and it set them up to not make the same mistake this year.
They didn't. Well, they didn't. They didn't make the same mistake because that, you know what that mistake would have been called? Florida State. Now, look, I'll concede this. Florida State beats Georgia, even though Georgia probably have like 50 opt-outs. I'll say that like the Tallahassee Democrat can name them national champions, and I'll say they're national champions.
They got to beat Georgia.
Like back in the day. You remember how they used to do that back in the day? Like, you know, they could have like 3 losses, but, you know, like the Smithfield Journal says that they're champs. Go Gophers.
Danny Cannell gives Alabama so much shit, you know.
Yeah. How about him, man? He's catching some heat right now from I saw where Herb Street kind of was like, "What's up,
see
bro?"
that.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like
he's taking it too far.
Yeah,
Danny has.
Honestly, I think we've talked about this before. The Herb Street aura that I saw back in the day. You know, when I walked into the old Innisfree back when it was in downtown where the Gray Lady is now, and we saw him, and he saw him standing there, and he had a glow to him, you know, like it was like he was like 8 foot taller than everybody else and glowing. I was like, that guy.
I think Herb Street's about as fair as they get.
He won me over again. Like if somebody tell Herbie, you're my boy, Blue, he's taking some shit, man.
But when he goes through his argument,
right, dude. It's like we're saying, like
when he goes through his argument and the rules of the game. Well, I mean, you can't blame the guy.
Well, he's saying, I don't want to go through another TCU. He wasn't a part of the committee
anyway, but I mean.
Right. He had to call that game last year.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the second quarter, and you're talking about like somebody's grandfather. So, yeah, right. You know, like you don't even, like it's one of the few times where I'm like, send it to the sideline.
Where's Pat McAfee?
Yeah,
get him up here.
How about his crew? That's what we need to do. Is we need to, if we're really gonna like get serious about this, we need a crew of guys. Like, I mean, we can't take the guy with the cowboy hat, you know, because he's already done that. Mm-hmm. But we just go out and we just like recruit some guys to come in, sit on the couch. Obviously, Ryan's part of our crew. We haven't seen him. I haven't seen him in a while.
Too many Christmas parties, you know?
Yeah, out there.
Out there what?
Out there doing the Christmas thing, man. I was thinking about that text you sent him. The group text. I can't wait to hear his take on this. But we need a crew, guys. Ryan's in our crew. We need about 2 or 3 more people that just come in here and are part of that, because that's what McAfee does.
Yeah. Well, I've got one in particular.
You got one?
Oh yeah.
Are you going to start wearing a tank top?
Nobody wants to see that.
No.
Dylan Lee will be in that crew for sure.
Let's bring him in.
He will be on this show at some point.
Let's go.
And you will be amazed at the kind of just shit that comes up and the shit that he says. It is, I mean, there's nobody like him. It is something to see.
Yeah. Well, we'd have fun doing it. I think I love like what McAfee's brought to. We've talked about this before. I just think what he's brought to the whole scene is good. Like,
no, it's more excitement. Did you see that pick, the Alabama pick this weekend?
Loved it.
Oh, I mean, that was one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. But it's done in a really humorous way, man. I think I've talked about it before. The guy named my son after Jake, Big Jake, loved football. And it was like everything revolved around football. And even his favorite team was the Eagles and Alabama, but the Eagles. But it didn't matter. Like, he just still loved the other teams too, because he was just in love with the game.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I see the same thing with McAfee. Like, there's no like ill intentions. It's just, you know what I mean? Like,
outside of when he told the Georgia fans to go to hell on Monday.
when he comes back, he'll be on their side.
Yeah.
He's a wrestling guy too, though. He's a wrestling guy too.
Anybody that brings that much positivity to a Saturday is hard to beat, you know.
I thought that he's been great. I've enjoyed his charisma. Honestly, man, I don't watch the show like I used to. And
Game Day?
Dude, watching Lee Corso these days, bro.
Yeah,
golly, man.
It's a little sad.
It is. Like, my grandfather had a stroke.
But I don't want him to go, though.
I know what you're saying. We're not putting him to pasture or anything. My grandfather had a stroke, and I remember talking to him on the phone. And the thing about it is, like, your brain still works. It's just hard to get it out.
Yeah.
You know? And
that video of Herb Street hugging Lee and they're both crying is like have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, it's like it makes you remember 20 years of Game Day, and then you just want to cry right there.
I know, man. Man, I hate
because
that.
I mean, I remember when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old.
Wake up.
I remember when school started, I was like, Game Day in 3 weeks. You know, it was like,
I know.
9-1.
I know.
Can't wait.
It used to be so huge, man. Getting old sucks, man. My grandfather told me that. Like, it does. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like now
kids will never understand Game Day. They got too much. There's too much shit to do for kids now.
Man.
You don't just play outside. Game Day's on.
Yeah, right.
You go play outside and then you catch a
now.
game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the best.
Yeah.
And when video games sucked and they weren't as good as playing outside too.
Oh yeah. How crazy is like the video game world now? I don't game much. We have a console.
I don't do it
Look
at
like
all.
real people. Like I've got the WWE game. I mean, every once in a while I'll go in there and play like the classic edition, like NWO and they moved the right way. And I was like, man, I remember when the Honky Tonk Man was on the game.
Man, when I got to college, my Austin Barron, my first roommate in college, he had a console and we'd play a little bit. And then I got to Alabama, and then my roommate at Alabama my first year had a console and we'd play a little bit. But I realized, like, my personality, I get too addicted to it and I want to just play and win. And I knew right then I would never buy one just because I knew the danger of getting locked into that stuff.
Yeah. Did you there was a game, I'm going to tell you, there's a couple games I haven't beaten a lot of games in my life because I'm an outside guy. You know, when I was a kid, I was an outside guy, like playing all the time. I was like the organizer of the games. You probably can see that in me. So I'd be on the bus coming in And then I'd be like, all right, Tony and Terrell, and you're going over on this team. I try to make fair teams.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd maybe help my team a little bit, but
Yeah.
So I didn't play a lot of video games, but I had Nintendo, and I mastered this game called Tyson's Punch Out. Mike Tyson. You remember this game?
I remember.
It was like Mike Tyson, and it was the last guy, and it was a boxing game.
Uh-huh.
And you would box all these guys, and then you'd get to Tyson, and one punch would knock you out.
Yeah.
You're like this. Doo-doo-doo. So I won that one. Super Techno Bowl was the first, the original Techno Bowl was this was before Madden, we would get together and play that. You'd be outside and then it'd get dark and you go to whoever's house had that. And there was only a handful of teams.
And then Bo Jackson was
it was
the cheat code.
Oh, dude, it would be he'd just run everybody over. Lawrence Taylor was could tackle everybody. Then they came up with Super Techno Bowl, and that was the first game that had all the teams.
Uh-huh.
And and then when Madden came out, everybody was like, "Whoa!" Yeah. Now I look at it and I feel
my older brother had some real physical altercation. Well, I had some beatdowns from. I had to endure some real physical trauma.
Because you beat him?
No, I just get angry and start shit with my older brother, and he'd beat the shit out of it.
Were you a turn off the game guy?
It definitely happened. Yeah. Hey, if you're down 42 in the fourth quarter and you reset the game, it doesn't count.
Yeah, right. Oh, I remember those. Now I think it saves them. I would have said back then it didn't. It started over.
Yeah, back then.
I don't even know. I had a cousin. There was this one baseball game that we were playing, and my older cousin, he thought he was the best at this game, and I had to watch his apartment when he was on the vacation for a week. I had to let his dogs out and stuff and go over there. I just sat in there and played this game, right? So he comes back. I just beat his ass. He made me walk home. I didn't even have 3 miles. He kicked me out of his house and made me walk home. He was so mad. I was still in high school, I think. Yeah. He comes in and I'm just dicing him up. And
the worst beating I got was I was down 30 points, and my brother's just talking trash to me, and so I was just all right, screw it. And I just jumped off sides every time just to piss him off. I mean, they'd give him 5 yards, I'd jump off sides again. I'd hammer their quarterback in the shotgun, and eventually he took the controller and just beat the hell out of me.
How older is he?
He's 5 years older than me.
So you had no chance.
I had no chance.
No shot.
No chance. Yeah.
Huh.
And now I can get the best of him, but he's a cheap shot artist. So
right.
He can still get me.
Oh yeah, there's still something there.
Oh yeah,
It makes you worry a little bit.
That's right. He's definitely meaner than me. There's no doubt about it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I look back. I look at this year, this Alabama season, and the game against Auburn. And I was thinking about this, all the crazy, Madden games and everything else. I don't even know if you could even script it like that. You know what I mean?
This season, this year?
Yes, Auburn game. You couldn't even, those guys. I'll tell you what I've enjoyed. I enjoy, when I see, the girl and she's, got herself on, we're getting ready to go. Yeah. And then it's oh.
I had a buddy of mine call me. He was like, "Oh man," it was a Sunday after the Iron Bowl. He was like, "Oh man, we went and we're sitting there. It's the most frustrating game you've ever seen." And in the fourth quarter, this guy that's 70 years old is standing next to me, and he's talking to his wife. He's like, "We got to rush the field. If the students do it, we're doing it. We're doing it." And his wife's like, "We're too old for this." He goes, "No, it's going to happen." And then that touchdown pass is thrown, and that guy's like, "What the fuck just happened?"
It's so funny. I got one too. One of my buddies told me, we have a friend. He's a doctor. I can't give you too many details, but they're down at the beach. Got a place at the beach, and my other buddy's an instigator. He's not an Alabama or an Auburn fan, but he's telling him, he's like, Doc, when Auburn, huge Auburn people, like when Auburn wins, you gotta take your clothes off and jump into Old River. It's getting ready to do that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh. So funny. It would have been funny to, like, if that to think of that happening, which would have been hilarious because they were so excited they were going to win. And then it's like, oh my God, like, that just happened. What I'm saying is that for that win, people would have done anything.
Oh yeah. I remember. This is all college football fun talk, and I got this buddy who he lives in Mobile, but he was talking so much shit to me about how they were going to beat Alabama the year we actually did lose to Auburn, and he's telling me this and that and how they're going to beat us, and I was like, Thomas, we had a bunch of guys hurt. I just said his name, but I was like, buddy, if you beat us, you may beat us, but we're still better than you. And we lose, and then we get in the playoff and win the national championship.
I remember that year.
Oh yeah. Which is, it is. It's like this year. If they beat us, it'd have been like, you got the best of us, but you still know the deal.
Yeah. Well, they didn't.
That's right.
Thank God. That even, like, you couldn't even have scripted that, man. And people have, like, called me from all over the country to just talk about the game, like the bad snap and the quarterback. Oh, and the Super Techno Bowl, you could actually run past the line of scrimmage, run back and throw it.
Yeah, I think you did tell me that.
Yeah. That was a trick in that game. It's like the court, have him run out and then run back and throw, and nobody would be covering the guy.
That didn't get past the test crew.
No, that was and now if there's like a glitch, they could just like fix it, right? Because you download the games. Yeah, I think so. So I can't wait for another game. Like, this Michigan game can't get here fast enough. People are pressuring me to go.
When the 12 team playoff comes out, when is the first playoff game set?
I think it's,
because let me tell you, there's no worse time in college football than like December 8th through December 20th.
Yeah.
I cannot wait until there's meaningful games in that window.
Right. Well, I'm going
this weekend. What are we going to watch?
We got Army Navy. I'm going to hang out with the next round guys down there for the game. But you're talking about 2 5-6 teams. It's not.
Yeah, it's
great. It is great, but it's just different.
I watch game day when they have it at that game, but I don't watch. Ryan Kelly had a brother who played for Navy, and it was I watched it that year, and of course that was when Navy was on their streak. I can't remember.
They were good, yeah.
But then Navy finally lost to Army, and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me! I'm watching Ryan's brother, and they lose.
Yeah, they but I don't know. Both teams are not great now, but it's still fun. Floribama is fun to go to these games.
No, it's. My brother played football in Air Force. I love watching that. Yeah. I love the tradition, all the history behind it.
What position did he play?
Safety.
Did he?
And so I love watching those games, but it's not like it's not the playoff.
No, I know
intensity.
It's just
you're
different.
watching it because it's fun to watch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not like. It's not going to be Alabama, Georgia.
God, as I say that, I feel so bad. I love it is terrible.
You're going to get another beating from him. Jesus. He's going to be looking for you.
He's going to be home in about 21 days. I got to strap up.
Man, I think going to the academies is one of the coolest things you can do, man.
I've got
so cool.
So I've got let's see, 3 out of my 4 siblings went to the Air Force Academy. My older brother, my younger sister, and my younger brother went to the Air Force Academy. And
you guys are smart, man.
They're smart.
That's pretty good bloodline, right there.
My older sister, she's also smarter than me. But I mean, I've been in the Air Force Academy a ton, and so
to like games and stuff.
Oh yeah, the flyovers are the best. The graduations are always awesome because you got some high level.
Yeah,
you got a high level, whether it's the president, vice president,
somebody good's coming.
Oh yeah, Secretary of Defense, or somebody speaking is high level, top 10 in the hierarchy.
Yeah,
and
did you ever think about going?
After I saw my older brother go through basic training and all that, I was like,
probably not for me.
I'm gonna try to play football or something.
Yeah, right. Do they still do that thing where you have to go in the gas chamber and take the mask off and everything? I didn't want to do that.
There's all kinds. I've seen a video of my little sister getting tased.
Guys, I want to show everybody's getting tased today because I want you guys to know what it feels like to get tased. like I was always worried. I did Air Force ROTC and for 2 years and it was great, but then I was like, you had to commit, sign the contract. I didn't do it. I just wasn't comfortable going into a gas chamber and taking my mask off,
But I mean, in all seriousness, the reason I say I felt bad about watching that is I, saw my older brother, younger sister, younger brother go through it. And I tell you, man, I've got more respect for those people. When I was playing the national championship, my brother was actually he was at Bagram Air Force Base. The one that they pretty much deserted, 2 years ago?
Oh, in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he was in a tent out in the desert when I was playing the national championship in Arizona. Yeah. And what's her name? Not Holly Rowe, girl with the SEC network. Anyway, I'm warming up in the end zone, and she comes, Kaylee Hartung. She comes running up to me, and I'd done a few interviews with her, so I knew her, but she comes running up, and she's got my brother FaceTiming me while I'm warming up in the end zone of the national championship. And I'm like in tears. Yeah. I'm like, Holly, Kaylee, this is awesome. And I'm like, you've jacked me up.
Look who's here.
Because my brother, he's flying A-10s, in the Middle East. And I'm like, so my gosh.
That is so cool.
No, it's such a cool memory now.
And cool that he's flying A-10s.
Oh my God. Yeah. Again,
that was one of my dreams, man. That's why I wanted to go. That's why I did our Air Force ROTC.
Yeah. Well,
wasn't smart enough. That's why I'm on here telling you guys about why Florida State doesn't deserve it.
That's why I say my older brother's a lot meaner than me.
We need to put him on the committee.
Hey, he'd be pretty good.
Buddy.
But anyway, so I FaceTime with him and I'm talking to him. I'm like, it's such a surreal moment. You're sitting there getting ready for that game and you get to see your brother who's literally in a tent, in the Middle East watching while he's got to get up in the morning and fly an A-10 around, anyway. So
awesome.
So FaceTime with him, I'm already a little jacked up, and then we go out there. The 4 captains, we got to walk out in the middle of the field and do the coin toss and all that. But before we do that, the national anthem comes on, and they've got the flag from the 40 to the 40, big flag, and
I remember that.
I'm sitting there and they're singing the national anthem, and they're showing veterans and servicemen up on the screen, and I just freaking lose it. I'm like tears coming down my face. I was like, holy hell. And Reggie Ragland looks at me. He's like, the fuck is wrong with you? And he slaps the shit out of my chest, and I'm like, man, I'm good. I'll be all right. I have to tell you later. So anyway, then we go out there and play the game, but I just remember all that was going through my head, and it was just one of those crazy surreal moments. And things, you're sitting there thinking you're playing a national championship, and then you think about the guys over in the Middle East or wherever they are, and you're like, this is a lot smaller than that,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why we love the game so much. Because it's like at the end of the game, they're lock arms and, and like.
And how hard is it to believe that my brother's over there with hundreds of guys and they're watching?
Nah, that's pretty cool.
The national championship. These guys are watching it in a whole different country, fighting a war, and they're watching this game.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, if you're over there, you're stationed with your brother, like, you can't cheer for Clemson? I mean, like that.
I was waiting to see what you said.
Like, you can't.
But he's in there. So, like, he's in there, and they're in this tent, and everybody's pulling for Alabama. And he was telling me this story. He's like, there's 3 guys that came in with, like, Clemson stuff on. And as soon as they walk in, everybody was like, get the out of here. Get your ass out of here. Just like grab and throw them out. What are you doing? And it's so funny. Like, I'm sure those guys had no idea that my brother Patrick,
yeah, right.
He's got a brother playing quarterback in this game.
Yeah, probably heard later, but like, what happened? These Alabama people take this shit seriously.
What are you doing?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I got such a kick out of that, but it's so crazy. Just wild stories. It's just hard to believe all that was, just raveled up. And he actually, his last game to see me right before he left, he came to the Georgia game in Athens and got to see that game live.
Did he wear his new boots and get rained on? They fit perfectly.
He got rained on.
Yeah. What a great win.
That was his last game to see me play, and then he had to go to Afghanistan, and
Hey man, God bless those guys and gals. They're
man, I tell you what,
nothing but respect for them.
No, yeah, hard to. I don't know. They deserve more respect and appreciation than they get. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. And the technology's gotten to the point where you can watch stuff over there. When my buddy Jake was in the military, he would call me on these unlisted numbers and ask me how the Eagles were doing. right after 9/11. Gillispie. What's Donovan McNabb doing? Like, I'd be like, first off, it was when caller ID were like these boxes. And it would be like unlisted or CIA. Like, okay, what? Oh, it's Jake. He's doing okay.
Gillispie.
Yeah, Gillispie.
T.O.'s still an asshole.
Man, now, like, do you like tailgating used to be like, if you tailgate, you shouldn't watch the game, like now it's like, you go into some tailgates and they got like 4 flat screens in there,
Oh yeah. Well, hell, Starlink. I mean, have you heard people talking about Starlink?
Yeah, it's
the rural internet source.
Yes,
it's insane how fast that is.
Oh yeah, that's what you had.
My father-in-law just but that wasn't a good advertisement.
Yeah. And at the time that we tried to do, and you, and then you, that time that we had 2 weeks where we weren't together.
Never mind.
We're not getting them as a sponsor.
Elon's got a little work to do.
No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you guys.
It works great for surfing the internet on FaceTiming and.
Did you ever have the when they had the dial-up internet? Do you remember the dial-up?
Oh yeah, the dial tone.
Yeah. AOL.
No, yeah, it's so.
Somebody would pick the phone up, and there goes your whole internet.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah.
I'm on Messenger over here. Don't mess me up. Life changed a lot.
Yeah, they got Starlink and fiber optic cable, and man, hard to believe.
Difference. Like, I'm at Alabama, and no one had computers. I mean, like, you had to be like pretty highfalutin to have a computer. We used to have to go to the computer lab. You guys got there, and you all had them. You know,
isn't it crazy how you can talk? Like, I could FaceTime and speak to someone in California. Like, technology's come that far. But we are still so stupid.
Don't be offended by that. If you're stupid, he's just.
We're all. I mean,
I know what you mean.
Insane.
I know what you mean. Man. We do have like crazy technology. I've said this before. Like this iPhone 15 has more technology than the space shuttle had in like '86.
Oh yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the technology we have, we're going to get into some conspiracy theories, but I mean,
I wonder where it came from.
That's right.
It's just all of a sudden we go from outhouses to nuclear bombs
in 100 years.
Yeah, no, and literally like 10. Yeah, okay, like maybe 20. It's kind of a big jump.
Yeah, go from shitting in a hole to splitting atoms.
Yeah, splitting atoms. Like, I wonder how that happened. I hope you guys are laughing as hard as we are. You're cracking me up right now. I got to throw something out there for you so I can fill your glass here. All right, back to this Bama football team. What are they doing right now? In this time between, waiting to play the first game and finishing up the regular season as SEC champs?
I remember I watched Derek get the Heisman Trophy when I was back home deer hunting when Derek got the Heisman Trophy, and so you get like one week off, maybe a week and a half, and then it's straight back to camp practice. I mean, you're busting your ass for like a week and a half, and you cannot wait for like season practice to come back in, so that the practices are a little bit shorter, and you're focused in on. Of course, you're always doing what the opposing team is doing. You're prepping for that, but it's a condensed version. And again, I knew camp practice was tougher. I can't imagine those O linemen, D linemen beating the hell out of each other. It was everybody was excited about getting back to the normal in-season routine. And nobody's on campus, nothing's going on, so you're it was a really fun time just because you're hanging out with all your teammates, and it's kind of like just the boys hanging out for a month, right? I remember, my wife now, she was my girlfriend back then, but she was back home, so I was just hanging out with Richard Mullaney, Ryan Kelly, Ryan, Dylan Lee, and Alec Morris, and that group, and we, just having a good time and just doing what a bunch of 20-year-old college dumbasses do,
So it's got to feel like it's taking forever, though, right? Because you get on this playing every week thing.
It's terrible because you're just sitting there. I mean, you want to play so bad. You're so excited about that next game, and you just can't wait. And then the SEC championship, I think, was December 7th when we played in it, and then we played. Yeah, it takes 24 days, so 3.5 weeks. You got to sit there and wait to play Michigan State or Michigan in this point.
Well, it's scenario. Michigan now, but it was Michigan State. I figured that would be kind of the case. What's Saban like during this time? Is he I'm sure I got a feeling he's got, mean
as hell. Just, reinforcing the standard, really, and nothing's good enough, and nothing that you do is good enough to win. And
how does that go? Tell me that. Explain this.
Well, it's like camp. I mean, there's I guess, no room for error. You're not as good as what you think you are. We're going to restart practice 3 times if we have to get this right. Even if you did do it right, I'm proving a point here.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, you're going to be out there working your ass off so that you don't do anything stupid off the field, pretty much,
Yeah.
Practice meetings, and then you're going to be so worn out by the time you get back to your dorm or apartment that you're going to play video games with your teammates and go to sleep. And that's pretty much what we did.
One of the criticisms that Kiffin had of Saban, which I didn't actually think was a bad criticism, was he talked about how physical practices are at the end of the season, into the postseason, where he felt like you maybe needed to let the foot off the gas a little bit, just so guys weren't hurt for the championship games, like the playoffs and stuff. And I thought that made sense to me. I mean, we do that in baseball, like you kind of get into that point where it's like you play all these games and you want to try to get healthy again, but football's a different sport.
I mean, I get that, but at the same time, I think college kids especially need routine. They need the reinforcement of toughness, and that's what the Alabama program is all about. That's what Coach Saban's all about. I've told that story about when I transferred from Florida State to Alabama, and I saw that workout sheet, and I thought that was a week-long workout. And Coach Cochran told me, no, that's today's. And I was like, oh, shit. This is going to be a totally different world.
Right.
That's what that program is built upon. And
how long did it take you to get used to that?
I'd say I had to have another knee surgery when I got there. So right after that, it probably took me and I was healthy, it probably took about 5-6 weeks. And at that point, those workouts started feeling short. And I say short, we flew through them a lot faster than what it felt like at the beginning. But I think that's the whole mentality. We ran nonstop. We worked out and lifted weights nonstop, and we practiced nonstop. And at the end of the day, when you played a game, it was so easy. And I say that playing quarterback. I saw my teammates at the end of the game. They were the only game I ever saw where we were tired, and it felt like a game where we were totally spent at the end, was that Clemson game in the national championship.
Yeah.
That's the only team.
One of the greatest games I ever saw.
That's the only team we played that year that I felt like we looked at in the eye and they didn't have any quit in them.
Yeah.
Even Ole Miss, when we lost, had we had another 2 quarters, you could tell they were done.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's a testament to Coach Saban's program and the way he operates. He's going to get you in the first, second round if you deserve to be there, if you're talented enough to be there and you buy into the process. So, you can criticize that program all you want to, but it's a championship recipe is what it is.
Yeah.
And you build a culture there that's tougher than anybody else in the country.
Yeah. And that's been his bread and butter.
So, look, you may keep people healthier. I don't necessarily agree with that. He's got 8 national championships. Is that right now? Or 7?
7.
Yeah. So,
let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, because the one at LSU. Yeah.
How do you argue
with that?
What's
your favorite of these Daniel Moore national championships?
Well, that one for sure.
Oh, yeah, the one with you on it. That was a trick question, I guess. No, I love that one. That game was unbelievable, man.
That was
such a fun game to be at.
If you had to rank, the 4th and 20, was it 4th and 27? Or 3rd and 27?
Yeah. 2nd and 26.
2nd and 26.
Yeah. Can you believe that?
Man, I'm way off.
Can you believe
I was at that game?
That was a 2nd down play? Why didn't they save that for 4th down? Like Milroe did. Milroe, the way Milroe did it was the most dramatic you could do it. Tua did it on 2nd down. Come on, man. I'm just kidding.
I was at that game, and I think I may have already said this on this podcast, but when me and John Parker Wilson were sitting next to each other, it was me, him, and my wife and his wife, and we're supposed to be sitting around a bunch of former Alabama and Georgia players, but apparently a lot of tickets had been sold, and they were all Georgia fans pretty much around us.
Yeah.
And they were letting us have it all game long. And I swear I watched that ball go in the air, and it was like slow motion. And I just grabbed my wife's arm, and I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And he caught that ball, and me and John Parker were losing it. We're just like pointing at everybody, giving them shit,
It's still that's still, I think, the greatest play in college football playoff history.
I mean, to end a national championship that way. Yeah.
On the 2nd and 20, then that defense, you remember how good that Georgia defense was?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you had to rank, let's rank them. Rank the top college or Alabama national championships. Well, that's one. This is two. And then I guess the rest are up for debate.
Right.
Because the rest were just beat downs.
Yeah, right. How about like the one from back, like when they held Penn State, like in the 70s, before we were really even old enough to even know. But you go into like the Waysider, and it would be like on the wall. And they're like, I'll take my eggs and ham. And then you're like,
I used to have one of my best friends from high school. I used to go to his house all the time, and they had the Penn State, walking, it was Stallings, right?
Yeah. Wait, what? Oh, 92.
Yeah. Walking Stallings off the field.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's rank Auburn's national championships.
2010. I love the one where they lost.
Me too.
Yeah, you do too. I was watching it at Baron Huber's house. We celebrated with you. You didn't even know it. We didn't even know you at the time.
God, I was on crutches that game, and I was listening on the headset to all the plays, and there was one play against Clemson earlier that year, and it was supposed to be a double move, a corner post, and Coach Sanders didn't hear the post part, and so he just called the corner for the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jameis drops back. He throws an interception to the safety, and Jimbo loses his mind. I mean, just absolutely loses it. And so I have a surgery like, I don't know, 3 weeks later on my knee, and the national championship's the first game I come back for. And I was like, hey, Coach Sanders, you want me to wear a headset just to make sure that doesn't happen again? And I swear to God, he calls the same play. And I guess I missed it. And he said just the regular play without the pump. And I thought I heard Jimbo say pump. And I go up, I was like, Coach, I think you missed it. And then those two, he starts asking Jimbo if he got it right. And Jimbo's like, what'd you call? And they're just getting after it. And come to find out, it was right all along. They called a timeout. Coach Sanders comes to me. He's like, don't come up to me and tell me that again.
You're just trying to help. Oops.
I was like, hope we don't need that timeout
again. Yeah. How nice was it beating them for a championship?
Well, that was one of those games that's kind of weird because, I mean, I think we were so much better from a player by player standpoint and just didn't play well. It was a very odd game. But I've told the story about leave that alone. But we'll.
These are the ones I really want to know. And this thing shuts off. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. Well, we got a couple weeks to kind of build into this. So you're give me your thoughts on Army Navy, and we got to kind of wrap this up.
Well, I hadn't watched Army or Navy this year.
You haven't? Get out of here.
But let's see. I guess I'll pull for Navy. I've been to that campus a couple times, so pulling for Navy.
All right, look, man, my dad was in the 82nd Airborne out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And if you've ever been there before, you come in on Gillispie.
I hope it's nicer than Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I'm not saying how nice it is or it isn't. I'm just I'll tell you this story and then we got to wrap it up. My first baseball job, I heard about Fayetteville from my dad, and I'm working in this play-by-play for this team in North Carolina, Wilson, North Carolina, called the Tobbs after tobacco leaves, And one of the teams we played was the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. I mean, this is a while ago, and I'm just so happy. Like I'd done college play-by-play at Alabama, baseball, all I wanted to do. And I sucked. I was terrible. So I was so happy to get a job, and then throughout the course of that first year, I'm learning how to really do this, So we go to North Carolina and I got dude, I'm talking about a headset and a microphone out the window. Well, these guys, Joes, we call them, the Joes, they kept leaning in my microphone, and I was on a good radio station, it was a 25,000 watt country FM station, that picked up these games. So it was, and it's flat there, so you can hear that forever. Yeah. Radio. And every time, I don't know why they kept getting drunk, and the one guy kept turning around and he'd be like, "Fuck you." In my microphone. And I'm like, "Hey man, what do you do?" I'm taking this seriously, sure. I would say just cuss into my microphone, right? So finally I'm I had enough, right? But I knew that one wrong move could end up disastrous for me, because there's a big group of guys. And finally I look at the guy sitting next to him, and I'm like, "Can you tell your friend to shut the fuck up?" They all start laughing. The guy apologized to me, and it was cool because I didn't say it in a mean way. I said it in a funny way, it was non-confrontational. Oh, yeah. I was I told him afterwards, I'm like, "Man, this is my first." My dad was in the 82nd Airborne. Yeah. Guys jumping out of planes and stuff. So go Army for me. All right. Well, this was fun, man.
Oh yeah, always is.
Always is. We'll get back together on Monday. I'm just glad we're still gainfully employed.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, think about this. We're disrupting the media in a way that they don't even disrupt the media. We're kind of I think we're kind of the outcasts of the
we are for sure.
I watch just Dunaway and Tyler show, and it's so good. It's so straight football, they're breaking down plays.
Yeah, you can have that.
I'm getting lectured from my wife. You really should have said this. You shouldn't have said that.
Just think if the show was what it is when the camera's turned off.
I know. I can't wait. I want to hear your story anyway. Man, it's been fun. I don't knock me off my cloud, man. I've been on a very high cloud since the catch. It's just rolled, man. 4th and 31 led me to the SEC championship game, led me to the college football playoff.
We're gonna smoke Michigan. We're gonna.
I know. I feel like that too, man. But I'm worried.
What quarterback has Michigan played like Jalen Milroe all year long?
I know.
What defense have they seen that's like Alabama's defense all year long?
Nobody.
What offensive line have they seen?
I know, but the thing about it is, like, they're still favored in this game, and you have said something that worries me. All the money. You saw that, didn't you? All the money's on Bama. I mean, all the money's on Bama. All of it. Like, the one guy that voted for Michigan, like, there's like literally across the country.
Hey, Vegas isn't always right.
5 guys.
They're not always right.
There's 5 guys that have put their money on Michigan. Everybody else is on Bama. My buddy Chad was showing me this the other day, and I was like, oh, man. And he said, what? I said, Coker's got this theory. That's what I said. And it did worry me a little bit. I'm going to be worried about that.
Yeah. Honestly, I will too. I'll be a little nervous about it.
I feel like you might have tapped into something, so I don't know. But then again, on the other hand, like, I expect a royal beatdown of them, but I know they've gotten better. They beat Ohio State.
I think Vegas is thinking that. I mean, honestly, I think what happened here is Vegas thought that people would be on Michigan at -2,
right?
And now they're like, "Oh shit, we screwed up."
Yeah,
yeah. I think they just read the public wrong.
That's right. Maybe. I don't know. I would have had Alabama like a 5-point favorite.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd have them at 3.5.
But what is it that they're looking at that they're worried about? You've seen us at times where we don't do certain things, and you're like, man, there's something. You know what I mean? Like, there's time, like the Arkansas game when we just all of a sudden just couldn't play anymore, and still won, or the Auburn game where we go in there and like they're pushing us around, But then maybe you watch the Georgia game where guys are getting thrown out of the club. I mean, you go back and watch that.
Then getting called for holding while they do it.
Oh, dude, it's like I would tell you this.
That was one of the worst holding calls I've ever seen. I mean, when they double team the guy, he chips him, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
one of the few penalties. We only had a handful of penalties. And that was a bad one.
Well, that was a crucial one. I mean, it was in a momentum driving time. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. These officials just, they're just driving
me nuts. Pay these guys and get real officials. All right. As you guys do your thing, mybookie.ag, when you make your initial bet, they will give you 50% price match up to $1,000. So if you're riding high like Jake, you make those picks, mybookie.ag. Or if you're like me and you got hot late, go ahead and make up for all the losses at the beginning of the year. And if you need some help, which is what I should have done in the first place, Lance's Lock, lanceslock.com. Lance, and he's a master of the game, whether you're talking NBA, college basketball, NFL football, college football, the bowl games, the championship games. Got it all covered right there at lanceslock.com. Jay Coker, I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you guys on Monday. Roll Tide.